Episode 5.
Welcome, guys.
Can you believe it? 5 episodes already.
It's going quickly.
It's going very quickly.
Oh, time flies when you're having fun, man.
Absolutely. It's been one of those, another difficult week in aviation. We expect these difficult weeks now, I guess. Lots of news out from the UAE, all over the world, in fact. Some positive things coming out of the UK, but it varies, Brett. I don't know. It's going to take a while for all this to stabilize and to come to some sort of finality and see how the world opens up the aviation industry. Right now, it's a bit hit or miss. On the local front, there's some very positive things coming out of South Africa. Some news yesterday: 94% load factor on a SAFE flight to Durban. Unbelievable.
It is. It's the news coming out is so contradictory of itself. It's you're not sure what to make of it. Like the SAFE numbers were just phenomenal. Then we have other numbers coming out of Africa, which I'll go into, where let's discuss it now. Airpiece. They're looking at reducing their trips by 60%. And that is a permanent reduction. That's just not for the time, for a period. So that is so constricting. It's unbelievable, and yet the rest of the world is opening up unbelievably. I mean, I think Delta's added something like 30 new destinations purely for the holiday period. So it's very contradictory.
It doesn't really add up. You read. I read an article yesterday saying Europe is sort of lagging behind the rest of the world in their opening up, but it's summer in Europe, and a lot of quarantine doesn't exist in most of the European countries. It's still there in the UK, but you would think that European travel would be up, but it also varies depending on what report you read. So it's going to take a while before we actually not start to believe the reports, but we need to see the numbers. And I think that's why I like that number from SAFE yesterday. It's an actual figure, 94% load factor on a Durban flight. There was an 81% load factor on a Cape Town flight. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, look, I think, as we've mentioned in the last couple of weeks, this virus has knocked the world for a six. So, like you said, there's going to be a lot of contradictory news coming out, purely because most countries are all reacting differently as to how they recover. Everybody's trying to find their feet in their own sort of way. So, probably for the next couple of months, it's going to be up on the one side, down on the other.
Yeah, the best way to actually understand what's happening in the news is to understand what the airlines are doing with the aircraft. That gives you a very clear indication. The Airpiece story, they're sitting with 13 737s. They're reducing them to 4, getting rid of the rest. The 8 ERJs, they're reducing those by 2. So that is the good indication. Not to say they're not going to repurchase or go into a high lease at a later stage, but right now the airlines are dumping aircraft. But I think it's, as we've spoken about before, it's a clean out, and every single company needs that. Airlines are absolutely no different.
That's the case in the UAE with Emirates. Anyway, the A380 fleet. Unfortunately, if you were caught on that fleet over a certain age, chances are you're not flying there. We mentioned that last week, but it's a complete overhaul of their whole their fleet management and that going forward. And you wonder, are they going to start looking at shorter haul aircraft? Where does someone like Fly Dubai fit into that picture? So there's a hell of a lot to happen, but we're seeing it all over the world. Here's no different. I think from what we've heard, Ryan, on the local front, things have got off to a relatively good start. It's just business travel, let's not forget that. It might be opened up sooner rather than later to non-essential travel. Let's hope that it does. But there's that demand, that underlying demand is there. People are still saying they want to fly and they're keen to fly. Let's hope. South Africa, maybe we're a little bit more resilient than we thought we were. Look, we've got 3 strong airlines flying at the moment. Mango, was pretty strong before the lockdown or before the pandemic. Safair very, very strong, and Airlink we know is very, very strong. So we've got the strongest of the strong flying at the moment, and let's hope that demand continues and improves, and see some good results.
Well, something that came out out of Namibia is the Namibian president is saying, liquidate Air Namibia, get rid of them. And that just raised a lot of questions and thoughts in my mind. I know the three of us have debated this long and hard as, do you need a national carrier? Do you really need? I mean, you've got a president of a country saying, dump it, they are making a loss, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, get rid of it. Should that not be the opinion for a lot of countries? I mean, does America have one national carrier? No, they don't. It's a massive debate. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to it.
And it's a new world we're going into.
Yeah.
So in this new world, what is required? In Namibia, we're having issues sort of long before this, and I think that's the case. We saw it with SA Express. It wasn't the COVID pandemic that sunk SA Express. They were having issues way before this, and I think that's a common thread throughout the aviation world. The airlines that were on the up and up, they're still there, but the ones that were battling before this have been cleaned out.
Yeah. Just to go back on what you said there, Brett, with do we need a national carrier? I think it's pretty controversial that as well, because how many of these airlines are still appealing for government support from their states? And are the governments going to support the airlines without having a stake in the airlines?
I'm sort of old school in the way I don't know if everyone's like this, but if I'm in an overseas airport and I'm walking through a terminal building and I look outside the window and there's a South African Airways tail up there, I'm always like proud. Hey, that's a Springbok aircraft.
For sure.
So I like to see it.
Yeah.
Whether the economy likes to see it is something to be seen. I mean, we know with the South African Airways, there's the talk of an equity partner and people coming in to buy a stake, and that's probably going to be the case. We'll see.
Yep.
Time
We
will
will,
tell.
but I do, however, agree with you as well. I love seeing that SAA tail. I don't know, just home is home. Even if you're 10,000 miles away and you see something like that, you feel at home.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that old adage, no marketing is bad marketing. So even if it's bad marketing, it's good marketing.
Yeah.
So I mean, right now, SAA is spoken of around the world. Not the best type of marketing, but I would like to see them come out of it.
I can relate. I mean, especially people now that are waiting to get repatriated on these South African Airways flights. Like you said, when you've been overseas and you look out of the window at Frankfurt Airport and you see that South African tail, it's like a little freedom bird
Taking you home.
Yeah, like that feeling.
Yeah, no, I like to see a tail. I think all the countries. I mean, you look at South African Airways history is massive. I mean, it's a huge historical story. Lufthansa the same. They're in big trouble at the moment. Lufthansa probably going to have to get rid of a lot of staff. Air France the same thing. Governments has stepped in and they are assisting. This call for government assistance is a big thing. The airlines, the flag carriers do provide a public service. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
They do provide a public service. Think about us around SA Express when we were flying there. We were flying to Mthatha. That was a public service.
Yep.
We weren't making millions of rand on the Mthatha route, I can assure you of that. But we were flying there because there were certain people that needed to go there.
Yeah.
So it does form some part of public transport. Shouldn't forget that. We see it in France. We go across if we have simulator training in Morlaix, you get on an Air France aircraft, flies you to Brest, so we can drive across to Morlaix. I don't see any other carriers flying there. Not many, Hop maybe, but very few carriers. So these flag carriers do provide a service. Whether or not those sorts of services will continue into this new world, time will tell.
Well, how does it not though? That's my question. If I need to get to Mthatha, what am I going to do now? I've got to drive. That's my only option at this stage.
At this stage. Yeah.
So realistically, if you are a national carrier in any form, you've got to provide the right services. We cannot have 4 airlines flying Joburg, Cape Town, Joburg, Durban, Joburg, Bloem. I mean, it's just crazy. You have to do the smaller stops.
I think that's pretty much where Airlink now are just waiting for government to open up the rest of the airfields. I listened to an interview the other day with the CEO of Airlink, and yeah, they're pretty much just waiting for government to give the go-ahead on opening up the rest of the airfields, because I think that's where their bread and butter is. So
out of interest there, Ryan, as well. Airlink now operating to Durban and Cape Town. That's not really part of their game plan, is it? They connect the smaller communities. So they're doing it obviously at the moment because those are the only airports you're allowed to fly to. But it's not really their game plan.
no, that's the thing. It's people at the moment that are travelling for business between Durban and Cape Town are quite spoiled for choice between the 4 airlines that are flying, and I think that's what's also making it difficult for the operators, is they have to drop their rates drastically to remain competitive. So yeah,
The
not an easy time.
margins were small before this.
Yeah.
Never mind now.
Exactly.
Obviously, there's the capacities there, the demand's not quite there. So passengers are spoiled for choice.
Yeah.
But if we can push something, because you are spoiled for choice, if you want to go and fly, now's the time to go and fly. I mean, if you're worried about going to Cape Town and you can't go to a restaurant or do all those normal things you would do on a holiday in Cape Town or Durban, hopefully those restrictions, or there's word already that those restrictions will be lifted shortly. So, as soon as that non-essential travel is available, we really urge the South African public to go and support the airlines and we're trying to push this hashtag support aviation.
Yeah.
We're trying to make people aware that the aviation industry is in dire straits at the moment, and the only way it will survive is with that support. Buy a ticket, take your family, go to Durban, go to Cape Town, go to PE East London when that's open. But please, hashtag support aviation. We need it.
Yeah.
The country needs it.
Yeah, I had to take a little drive to Paris 2 days ago, and let me tell you, getting out of the city and just driving, and it was the best thing ever. It was like I'd never experienced this in my life.
Yeah.
So I cannot wait to jump on a plane and go to the Cape, go down to Durbs, just have a little bit of a long weekend.
Yeah. And for those more affluent individuals out there, if you're too scared to fly commercially, support your local charter company.
Ryan, you're the charter expert. What's going on? What's going on with the charters? I mean, we've mentioned that a lot. The charter market in South Africa is a big market. It's not this Mickey Mouse little industry on the side. It's a proper aviation market, and we need the game farms, the lodges. They must be crying out for the charter market to pick up and that sort of travel allowed again. Any news on the charter side?
I think it's still very quiet. There are a few operators out there that are still flying a bit of cargo. There are a few charters happening here and there, but nothing like it used to be. I think the big game changer there is when the borders open again. Then the charter industry relies a lot on overseas travel, and we need those borders open for these companies to get up and running again.
Are we still looking at September for the borders?
Looks like it.
I hope so. Yeah, I just read yesterday, Canada, USA and Mexico, they've extended their border restriction for non-essential traffic to late in July. So there is this sort of trend that they are holding these restrictions on a bit longer than initially thought. There was a recent outbreak in China. A few more restrictions imposed on China, particularly in their capital there. In fact, they had the biggest flare-up since February there in China. So that's the sort of secondary effect of this COVID. And I think everyone's going to be watching that very closely, because it started in China, it moved around the world, but now let's say it's going back to China. So we need to see how they handle this situation. but stopping air traffic again will be absolutely catastrophic.
All the indications are in end of June into July, a lot of the world is planning on opening borders and that, but you can't gauge that, like you've just spoken about with China. If you have another flare-up, what are you supposed to do?
Sorry.
No, go.
But I think when this virus broke out, it was the first time that the world had seen this. So there was an initial reaction of, what do we do now? Now that the world is fully aware of what this virus is all about, and everybody's put in their protocols, and we know how to handle and mitigate the spread. Hopefully it doesn't lead to a secondary halt on aviation, because all the airlines and governments now know how to deal with it. So hopefully it doesn't come to that.
I agree. We heard Roger Foster, you mentioned on that on a podcast the other day, and you know what he said was, and I see a lot of people pushing this, your chance of contracting COVID-19 on an aircraft, you know, is lower than it is going to a local supermarket.
Exactly.
So there's that education side as well. I think obviously the concern is that the airlines, they go and reactivate all the aircraft, get their crew up and ready to fly, and then there's a flare up and suddenly they close down again. You wonder if they would be able to recover from that situation. As it is now, probably not. The reserves, the liquid reserves have been used up during this initial phase. So I hope government is clever about the way they do this and almost expect a secondary flare-up. Like we said, if it happens in China, it's probably going to happen everywhere else. There has been a secondary flare-up. The big thing here, do what the pilots do when something goes wrong. It's no point in panicking, throwing up your arms and panicking. Just handle the situation.
Yeah. But I think governments are like businesses. They are fully aware that there's going to be flare-ups. They got to work on. We know here in South Africa, Gauteng, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, the numbers are increasing exponentially. It's quite crazy to have a look at. But they're looking at opening up restaurants and hairdressers and all of that because they know it's going to happen. If a business has an infection, you don't shut your business down for another 3 weeks. You deep clean, quarantine who needs to be quarantined, and test the rest, and if necessary, and carry on business. We have to do this. It's just we have no choice any longer.
No.
You can't shut the world economy or a country's economy down, not even for a week.
No, you can't.
At this stage.
No, because the detrimental effects of the economy collapsing is just far worse than what this pandemic could do.
Yeah, you're right. Look, time will tell. We'll see what happens, but let's hope. Going just further abroad, the UK, they've still got that 14-day quarantine. Obviously, they're seeing no growth or any form of restart of their aviation industry. There is a lot of talk. There was an article in the Telegraph yesterday that might very well change early
There's a
in July.
lot of pressure on government to remove that.
There's a lot of pressure, and let's not forget the UK aviation market's the third biggest in the world behind the US and China. It's a massive market. So what happens in the UK will affect everything else. Let's hope that the lobbyists and that get that quarantine law squashed as quickly as possible. It's aviation needs that for sure.
I think once again, government has to be seen to protect, but at the same time, you've got to jumpstart the economy.
Yeah,
And the only way to do that is to remove this legislation.
Just to move, talk about pilots a little bit. We've spoken to a few people around the world, a lot of our contacts flying in different parts of the world. We've got various ideas of what's happening. Scoot Airlines in Singapore. Spoke to a friend of ours there just to ask him what are you guys doing? What has Scoot done to through this whole pandemic? And he came with a whole list of things that they've actually done. It was quite interesting to see. But it was, I think, a big kudos to how Scoot has actually handled this situation. they made a whole lot of online courses available to all the pilots, all the employees to upskill. They put a whole lot of content on their company iPads for the guys to read, all focused on bettering them for when things do open up again. They moved all their soft courses online, so dangerous goods, SCPT, all this stuff was moved online, which will now obviously carry on. Very good collaboration with their CIA. Nice to see that they took such drastic steps. They also use the cabin crew as an example. They call them safety ambassadors. They sent their cabin crew off to do temperature screening of potential COVID cases. Pilots have been used in various other industries, and we're seeing a bit of a trend going into that direction. I was lucky enough to have a online conversation with Martin Stork last night. He's part of a group called Cockpit Coaches, where they actually utilize your existing skills you have as an airline pilot and try and push you into or use those skills for other industries. What he was trying to stress was the skills that pilots have, they're not limited to just flying an aircraft. There's a lot of peripheral skills that come with that, and utilizing those skills going forward in other industries, even if it's for this little interim period, is going to be critical. And I think going to be is a key word. Things are going to change. There's mass job losses. We know about this already. But what he kept saying to me yesterday was, we will start calling ourselves pilots and. So you're a pilot and you're a safety manager, or pilot and an accountant, or pilot and a social media expert, whatever it might be. But it was quite interesting to talk to him. And in fact, I asked him if we could spend some time to get him on our podcast, which we've managed to do. So next week we'll have a special episode with Martin, just stressing a couple of his key points that he's trying to push forward. He's made a nice, he calls it memory items. When things start going wrong, when you have an engine failure in life, we don't just throw our hands up and say we can't handle it. When we have it in the aircraft, there's a set of procedures that we follow to mitigate the risk, come back and land that aircraft safely. Life should be no different. Very interesting guy to talk to, and I'm very keen to push him to the South African audience. So next week, Monday or Tuesday, please listen out for that show.
I think for me, from a business perspective, and also being an aviator at the same time, understanding that the talents that pilots have to fly an aircraft, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, but it's not. So that says something about the mental capacity and ability of a pilot. I get why pilots are pilots, and first and foremost, they're a pilot. Because it's a passion. To sit in a cockpit and fly around and do your thing there is the best thing you can ever do. But at the same time, you have to look at, in any other type of industry, nowadays it's not good just to have one stream of income. You've got to have multiple streams. I mean, at least two to three is ideal for any type of business person, because you don't know when one thing's going to shut down and another is going to keep you afloat. So what is the difference? I just love, I'm dying to push this podcast out with Martin, and just get people thinking differently.
Yeah, I love what they're pushing and what they're encouraging, because like you said, pilots are very talented individuals in a lot of other aspects as well. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication to become a pilot. The amount of effort it takes to study and put yourself through all the loops to get your license.
And the expense.
I mean, it's not easy, and if you have to take things at face value now, you're going to have to put the same amount of effort into whatever else you decide to do. but do it with the same gusto and passion, and you'll make a success of it.
Well, talking to Martin, what he said to me was, however, there's no excuse these days. There's an abundance of online stuff available where you can dedicate yourself for a couple of weeks, and you can actually get a certificate for it. So the excuses are a little bit hard to come by. Something that we spoke about the other day, seniority lists at airlines. They are having a very negative impact now. If you look at a seniority list, it does not pay you. For those that don't know, your joining date at an airline is basically you become a certain seniority number based on that date. So I did a couple of things. I was never a fan of a seniority number. First of all, I don't think it ever encourages productivity. It doesn't encourage you to do anything extra, because the guy that started the day before you will probably get offered the command, or will get offered the command position in front of you. But if you look at guys that have been stuck at airlines, or not stuck, but wanted to stay at the airlines for some guys 10, 15, 20, 25 years, Brett, now you're in a situation where this pandemic has happened, you're out looking for another job. The last time some of these guys applied for a job was early 90s. Things like, if you're not on a professional network like LinkedIn or something like that at the moment, how are you aware of other job opportunities? How are you aware of these webinars and that to upskill yourself? Something I think we really trying to push and encourage people, get online, get on a professional network, make contacts with people. That, networking, when my dad spoke to me about networking, it's all about business cards and meeting people, shaking people's hands. Networking is now online. You can have, I had a call with Martin last night. He was in Canada. Yeah. And it's remarkable who you can talk to, but networking is online. We really need to encourage, particularly pilots right now, get online, get a LinkedIn profile. If you need help, give us a shout. We'll help you with it, and really start to use it for the betterment of yourself. Use it to upskill yourself. I think LinkedIn, Brett, you're quite good at this. I mean, it's almost like what Facebook was like about 12 years ago. It's a professional network. So if you are connecting with people in the aviation industry or the marketing industry, whatever it might be, you tend to become a lot more aware of these courses and like I say, webinars. Some of the webinars are hit and miss. Some of them are fantastic. It's going to take an hour of your life to go and listen to one. But the chances are your next interview is going to be online over a webcam. So start getting used to it now.
Without a doubt, I can't stress it more. I mentioned to you guys a couple of years ago, a good friend of mine. He's a LinkedIn specialist. He flies all over the world, used to, and just teach people how to use LinkedIn. And I spent a half a day with him. And let me tell you, I was at the top of a search list in a certain category that I'd focused on at that stage. Just the amount of contacts I received through that. Yes, we love shaking hands with someone and having a coffee with someone and chatting to them and network that way. Those days are long gone. We've got to realize that. So if you are not online with a LinkedIn or look, LinkedIn is my chosen platform.
It doesn't have to be LinkedIn.
It doesn't have to be that. I've got a Facebook profile. I'm active fractionally on that, but the amount of contacts I've made worldwide is unbelievable. I could never have done it any other way. I know the ease of, if I want to get in contact with someone, chances are they're on LinkedIn if they're a business person, and there is a huge chance that they're going to respond to me when I send them a message there, because they're active on it. So we've got to do that, and I agree. I think we've got to provide help. I'd like to do that. I've had discussions. Hopefully by the next podcast we can provide assistance to guys who want to get online.
Proper service. Contact us, and if you are worried about it or have those sort of hurdles that you're not sure how to get over, give us a shout, and that's something that we would definitely like to champion. I think it's a nice way to try and give something back, but I really believe that is absolutely critical for going forward.
I can vouch for it. I mean, I took your advice a couple of weeks ago, and started ramping up my social media presence, and it has made a difference. It definitely works. The content on LinkedIn, for instance, is brilliant. 100% behind that.
I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if we didn't mention the absolutely disgusting behaviour that was shown towards the SA Express employees outside DPE the other day. It was a friendly protest. Again, I'm reiterating, a friendly protest. And what they are protesting against is not to try and say, restart SA Express so we can carry on flying. All they want is the money owed to them with a decent enough and humane package that all the other SOEs have been given. Now, the DG at the Scopa meeting on camera said they will go and explain this nicely to the employees outside, and the videos I saw, Ryan, were stun grenades being thrown at the employees. I thought it was a disgrace. It was an absolute disgrace. With all the work and everything that's happened, with the amount of effort that those employees have put in over the years under the most trying circumstances, to be treated that way was an absolute disgrace.
It was disgusting. Really was disgusting. I'm pretty angry about that, to be honest.
Oh.
It seems like when friendly demonstrators, even friendly, touch a nerve, the only response is harsh, which is never the solution to it. Unfortunately, it's happened, and we've got to, the guys have to find a way to get around it. But their demonstration is valid. If it was ridiculous, like you're saying, we force that SACS gets reopened. Yeah, don't be stupid. It's not going to work. But all the guys were doing was saying, just give us what we owed, and we'll walk away quietly.
And it's not, and exactly what you say. It's not. They're not asking for SACS to be reopened. We'll see. We're not going to go on it much more. I just wanted to say that I don't agree with it. I thought it was horrendous, and I hope I never see that again. We wanted to mention a word for the guys at Comair at the moment. They've been one of the mainstay airlines in South Africa for a long time. They would have expected to be flying in this period, getting up and running with the likes of Safair and Airlink, and they're not. They're going through a difficult time. And I'd just like to shout out a word to some of their pilots and crew that are sitting at home in this very stressful time. We're all going through it. Everyone's going through it. It's a very, very difficult period, but I'd like to get the word out there. I know you mentioned that, Ryan. Actually, I stole your shout out there. You wanted to shout out to Comair, but I stole it from you there.
That's fine, Ryan. I'm getting kind of used to you stealing my thunder. No, I'm joking. No, it is. It's I've spoken to a few of my friends there, and the Comair guys are sitting exactly where the SA Express guys were, a couple of years ago. That same fear and uncertainty and all the anxiety of what's in their future. And I just want to give a shout out to them and say, listen, we're thinking of you guys. We're behind you. We are there with you. And just stay strong, and we'll get through this.
We'll get through this. Aviation will get through this, there's no doubt. Guys, hashtag support aviation. We've got a Facebook page. We're on there, Brian Air Podcast. We've got a YouTube page, Brian Air Podcast. Please, please, please subscribe. Tell your friends, families about us. And again, thanks for all the support the last week. You've been terrific.
It has been unbelievable.
It's been one of the nicest things to get the messages from people saying how they're enjoying the show, and long may that continue. Yeah,
for sure. But I think before we end off, important new regulation come out from the CAA.
Oh, really?
CAA, I think every CAA worldwide, so I want to read it if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
And then just listen carefully. New CAA regulations, Part 0, Section 000A1C. Section 1, no pilot or pilots or person or persons acting on the direction or suggestion or supervision of a pilot or pilot may try or attempt to try or make attempt to try to comprehend or understand any or all in whole or in part of the herein mentioned aviation regulations, except as authorized by the administrator or an agent appointed by or inspected by the administrator. Section 2, if a pilot or group of associate pilots become aware or realize or detect or discovers or finds that he or she or they are or have been beginning to understand the aviation regulations, they must immediately, within 3 days, notify in writing the administrator. Section 3. Upon receipt of the above-mentioned notice of impending comprehension, the administrator shall immediately rewrite the aviation regulations in such a manner as to eliminate any further comprehension hazards. Section 4. The administrator may, at his or her discretion, require the offending pilot or pilots to attend remedial instruction in aviation regulations until such time that the pilot is too confused to be capable of understanding anything.
Well, thanks for that, Brett, because I've tried to keep a very good relationship with the South African Civil Aviation Authority, and now you've just totally ruined it.
I saw that, it was just absolutely classic.
Guys, thanks for your time, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Take care.